In 1957, racetracks across America trembled under the thunderous roar of an engine so dominant it struck fear into competitors' hearts. Then suddenly, silence. Chevrolet's fearsome Black Widow engine vanished from NASCAR virtually overnight, leaving fans bewildered and competitors relieved. The shocking truth? This mechanical masterpiece wasn't banned because it failed safety inspections or violated technical regulations. The Black Widow was banished because it worked too damn well, threatening not just rivals on the track, but the very power structure of American motorsport itself. Behind closed doors at General Motors headquarters, executives made a calculated decision that still reverberates through automotive history. The official explanation pointed to safety concerns following a deadly crash at Daytona. The truth? NASCAR officials, Ford executives, and even GM's own leadership had grown increasingly uncomfortable with the Black Widow's utter domination. When Buck Baker's fuel-injected Chevy crossed the finish line at Darlington, leaving the competition choking on exhaust fumes yet again, the die was cast. Within weeks, the Automotive Manufacturers Association would enact their infamous racing ban, a thinly veiled attempt to cage the Black Widow before it devoured everything in its path. What made this engine so threatening that an entire industry conspired to eliminate it? How did a single mechanical development force America's largest corporations to collude against their own racing programs? How did this corporate maneuver inadvertently create one of the most enduring legends in automotive history? The answers reveal as much about America's post-war psyche as they do about engineering excellence. The year was 1955, and America's fascination with automotive performance was transforming from casual interest to national obsession. Drive-in theaters were packed with teenagers in freshly waxed coupes. New interstate highways promised freedom and adventure. And in a corner of Chevrolet's technical center in Warren, Michigan, a group of engineers was quietly crafting what would become Detroit's deadliest racing weapon. Ed Cole had just overseen the introduction of Chevrolet's revolutionary small block V8, a compact, lightweight engine that could eventually power everything from family sedans to fire-breathing race cars. At 265 cubic inches, this first iteration was impressive, but hardly revolutionary in NASCAR terms. What transformed this modest power plant into racing legend was the vision of a Belgian immigrant with gasoline in his veins. Zora Arkus Duntov didn't fit the General Motors corporate mold. European-trained and race-hardened at Le Mans, Duntov saw potential in the small block that conservative executives missed entirely. While officially hired to inject performance DNA into the fledgling Corvette program, Duntov's influence quickly spread throughout Chevrolet's engineering department. American youth are not interested in economy cars, Duntov wrote in a now-famous internal memo. They want performance. And they're building it themselves when manufacturers don't provide it. This document, effectively a manifesto for factory performance development, landed on Ed Cole's desk at precisely the right moment. Cole, recognizing both the engineering logic and market opportunity, gave tacit approval for limited racing development while maintaining plausible deniability with GM's upper management. This corporate doublespeak, publicly disavowing racing while secretly funding it, created the perfect conditions for skunkworks innovation. Engineers could develop racing components without navigating normal corporate approval channels. Parts could be tested under the guise of durability research, and when victories came, they could be attributed to independent racers rather than factory efforts. "We never went racing officially," a retired Chevrolet engineer later admitted under condition of anonymity. "But we sure as hell made sure our cars won races." This wink and nod approach to motorsport was common in the era, but Chevrolet executed it with unprecedented effectiveness. By 1957, the original 265 cubic inch engine had evolved into a 283 cubic inch powerhouse. The increased displacement alone would have made it competitive, but Chevrolet's engineering team had a technological ace up their sleeve that would change American motorsport forever: fuel injection. While European manufacturers had experimented with mechanical fuel injection, no American production car had offered this technology until Chevrolet unveiled the Rochester ramjet system in 1957. Unlike carburetors that mixed air and fuel before entering the engine, fuel injection delivered precisely measured amounts directly into each cylinder. The result was more efficient combustion, better throttle response, and increased power, particularly at high RPMs where carburetors often struggled. For street applications, fuel injection offered improved drivability and the marketing distinction of achieving 1 horsepower per inch. The magical 283 horsepower from 283 cubic inches that became Chevrolet's calling card. But in racing form, developed with clandestine support from the factory and refined by Southern mechanics like legendary Smokey Yunick, the system's advantages multiplied exponentially. The technical challenges had been formidable. Early prototypes suffered from fuel distribution problems, with some cylinders running rich while others starved. Manufacturing tolerances that were acceptable for carburetors proved woefully inadequate for the precision required by fuel injection. Even the basic material science needed advancement. Conventional gaskets and seals couldn't withstand the higher fuel pressures involved. John Dolza, an Italian-born engineer who headed Rochester Products Division, assembled a specialized team to overcome these obstacles. Drawing on wartime aircraft fuel system development and early Mercedes-Benz experiments, Dolza's group created a constant flow system that used intake vacuum to regulate fuel delivery. Rather than injecting fuel directly into the combustion chamber, as diesel engines did, the Rochester system sprayed fuel into the intake port just before the valve, a compromise that balanced performance with manufacturing feasibility. The production version, impressive as it was with 283 horsepower rating, merely hinted at the system's potential. In racing form, with higher pressure pumps, recalibrated metering, and specialized nozzles, the injection system could deliver over 315 horsepower, an astonishing figure for 1957, and a number that NASCAR competitors found terrifying. NASCAR's high-banked ovals punished conventional fuel delivery systems. Hard cornering caused fuel to slosh away from intake pickups in carbureted cars, creating momentary lean conditions precisely when drivers needed power most. The fuel injection system eliminated this problem entirely. Chevrolet drivers could maintain full throttle through corners where competitors had to lift, translating directly to faster lap times and race-winning advantages. First time I drove the injected car at Daytona, I thought something was broken. NASCAR driver Fireball Roberts reportedly told Smokey Yunick, "Engine just kept pulling where my old car would have gone flat. Took me 3 laps to trust it enough to keep my foot down." The most visible manifestations of the Black Widow program were the black and white 1957 Chevrolet 150 utility sedans prepared for NASCAR competition. These cars were deliberately understated, the plainest model in Chevrolet's lineup, chosen specifically for their lighter weight and stripped-down aesthetics. The contrast between their pedestrian appearance and ferocious performance caught competitors off guard and earned them the ominous Black Widow nickname that would become racing legend. Southern stock car fans, accustomed to seeing modified versions of their own daily drivers on track, embraced these sinister-looking Chevrolets immediately. Here was David taking on Goliath, the everyman's car defeating more expensive, purpose-built competitors. The Black Widow became an overnight cultural phenomenon in racing circles. especially throughout the Southeast where NASCAR enjoyed its strongest following. The cars themselves were masterpieces of focused engineering. While appearing stock to meet NASCAR's regulations, virtually every component had been scrutinized and optimized. Body panels were acid-dipped to reduce weight. Frames were reinforced at strategic points to improve handling. Suspension components received subtle modifications that enhanced cornering while still resembling production parts. Even the placement of the body on the frame was adjusted slightly, an inch back, half an inch lower, creating aerodynamic advantages imperceptible to regulators, but meaningful at 140 miles per hour. But the heart of the Black Widow engine was undeniably its fuel-injected power plant. Beyond the Rochester injection system itself, these engines received specialized cylinder heads with larger valves, forged pistons with higher compression ratios, aggressive camshafts with solid lifters rather than hydraulic ones, and strengthened internal components. The distinctive ram's horn exhaust manifolds were actually tuned for optimal exhaust gas velocity. Even the cooling system was recalibrated to maintain ideal operating temperatures under the extreme conditions of NASCAR competition. The package came together in February 1957 at Daytona Beach, still racing on the combined beach road course before the superspeedway's construction. Black Widow-equipped Chevrolets dominated qualifying, serving notice that a new era had arrived in stock car competition. Though mechanical teething problems prevented victory in the first outing, competitors recognized the threat immediately. Those Chevys weren't just quick, they were in a different league entirely. If they sorted their reliability issues, we were all racing for second place. When the 1957 NASCAR season began in earnest, the Black Widow's dominance was immediate and overwhelming. Buck Baker, already an established star, found the fuel-injected Chevrolet transformed his driving style. With carburation, you had to wait a beat after corner exit before going full throttle, Baker later recalled. With the Fuelie, the power was instant. I could get the jump on anybody coming off the turns. At Martinsville, fuel injection helped Jack Smith dominate the tight half-mile oval where throttle response was paramount. At Darlington's Southern 500, NASCAR's oldest speedway event, Fonnie Flock drove his Black Widow to a victory that shocked the racing establishment. By mid-season, Chevrolet had accumulated more victories than all other manufacturers combined, with Buck Baker well on his way to securing the championship. The competition was shell-shocked. 4 teams protested that the fuel injection system wasn't truly a production component, despite Chevrolet's insistence that anyone could order it through their dealer's parts department. Chrysler engines scrambled to develop competing technology. NASCAR founder Bill France Sr. faced mounting pressure from non-Chevrolet teams, threatening to boycott races if something wasn't done about the Black Widow's advantage. It's not just that they're winning, complained one Ford team owner in a heated meeting with France. It's that nobody else has a chance. This isn't racing anymore. It's a Chevrolet parade lap. France, ever the pragmatist, recognized this existential threat this dominance posed to his growing series. NASCAR's appeal rested largely on competitive balance, the belief that on any given Sunday, multiple drivers and manufacturers had a realistic shot at victory. The Black Widow was destroying this perception race by race, potentially undermining fan interest and manufacturer participation simultaneously. Behind the scenes, France began applying pressure to General Motors executives. He couldn't ban the fuel injection system outright without appearing to penalize innovation, but he could make it known that NASCAR's future relationship with Chevrolet might depend on a more level playing field. This diplomatic maneuvering might have continued as a background tension throughout the season, were it not for events that provided the perfect pretext for more drastic action. Then came the Daytona tragedy in February 1957. During a qualifying race for the Daytona 500, a multi-car accident sent debris flying into spectator areas, killing several fans. Though not directly involving a Black Widow car, the incident created the perfect pretext for what happened next. The Automotive Manufacturers Association, essentially a trade group representing America's major car companies, called an emergency meeting. On June 6, 1957, they announced what became known as the AMA ban, a gentleman's agreement among automakers to cease all direct support for racing activities and to stop advertising performance aspects of their vehicles. For Chevrolet, the timing could not have been worse. Just as the Black Widow program was establishing complete superiority in NASCAR, corporate headquarters ordered an immediate cessation of all racing activities. Engineers were instructed to destroy documentation related to racing development. Parts inventories were supposedly scrapped. The official position became that Chevrolet did not go racing. Period. Harley Earl, GM's legendary design chief, reportedly erupted when informed of the decision. "We've just perfected the damn thing, and now we're supposed to pretend it never existed?" According to witnesses, Earl stormed out of the executive meeting where the ban was confirmed. Ed Cole, by then Chevrolet's general manager, found himself in an awkward position of implementing a policy he privately opposed. Cole understood the marketing value of racing success and had championed the Black Widow program from its inception. Now, he was forced to dismantle it at the moment of its greatest triumph. Zora Arcos Dontov took the news particularly hard. The racing-obsessed engineer had invested countless hours in the fuel injection development, often working weekends and evenings outside normal channels. For Dontov, the Black Widow engine wasn't merely an engineering project. It was vindication of his performance philosophy and proof that American manufacturers could create world-class racing engines. NASCAR was suddenly facing a crisis. Its most dominant manufacturer had been forced to withdraw, potentially taking fan interest and media coverage with it. The ban effectively killed the Black Widow program in its official form. Buck Baker would go on to win the 1957 championship largely on the strength of his early season performance in the fuel-injected Chevrolet, but the factory support that had made those victories possible disappeared almost overnight. Independent teams could still run their Chevrolets, but without the ongoing development and part support that had created their advantage. The official NASCAR records show that Chevrolet won 21 of the 40 Grand National races held in 1957, most powered by the fuel-injected Black Widow 283. Of course, reality was more complicated than official pronouncements suggested. Zora Arcos Dontov and other true believers within Chevrolet found ways to continue development under different guises. Performance parts were still developed but marketed for off-road use only. The knowledge gained from the Black Widow program filtered into production vehicles in ways that bypassed the letter of the ban while violating its spirit. Smokey Yunick, whose best damn garage in town in Daytona Beach had been central to the Black Widow's development, continued receiving unmarked packages from Detroit containing experimental parts. Southern Chevrolet dealers with racing interests became unofficial conduits for factory support. Nally Chevrolet in Atlanta, Hardy Chevrolet in Dallas, and several others maintained quasi-factory teams while maintaining plausible deniability. The ban had officially killed the Black Widow engine, but its DNA lived on through these underground channels. Chevrolet executives developed a coded language to discuss ongoing racing support without explicitly acknowledging it. Customer technical assistance covered direct engineering help to friendly teams. Production validation testing justified continuing development of high-performance components. Regional marketing initiatives provided funds that mysteriously ended up supporting race teams in key markets. The Shadowland existence suited some engineers better than the previous arrangement. Freed from corporate oversight and public scrutiny, they could pursue performance development without worrying about production feasibility or marketing approval. The resulting innovations improved cylinder heads, more durable valve train components. Advanced ignition systems would eventually filter back into production cars under the guise of normal product improvement. NASCAR itself accommodated this new reality by revisiting its rulebook. The requirement that components be available through regular dealer channels in sufficient quantities to be considered stocked was tightened, specifically targeting limited production specials like the fuel-injected engine package. Even if Chevrolet had wanted to circumvent the ban, these rule changes would have made it increasingly difficult to maintain the Black Widow's advantage. Bill France Sr., recognizing the need to maintain manufacturer interest despite the official ban, allowed teams to continue running existing equipment while subtly encouraging a more balanced competition. NASCAR inspectors might scrutinize a dominant car more closely, but overlook similar modifications in less successful vehicles. This unofficial handicapping system maintained the appearance of stock competition while preventing any single manufacturer from establishing Black Widow-level dominance again. The Rochester fuel injection system remained available as a production option through 1965, though in progressively smaller numbers. By the mid-1960s, multiple four-barrel carburetors had become the preferred approach for performance applications, offering similar power potential at lower cost and with more familiar maintenance requirements. Fuel injection wouldn't return to mainstream American performance cars until electronic systems became prevalent in the 1980s. This transition reveals an often overlooked aspect of the Black Widow story. It was simply ahead of its time. The mechanical fuel injection system pioneered concepts that would become universal decades later. But the supporting technologies, electronic sensors, computer control, and precision manufacturing, weren't sufficiently advanced in 1957 to make fuel injection cost-effective for mass production. For modern historians, the Black Widow saga represents a pivotal moment in the evolution of American performance cars. This wasn't merely a successful racing engine. It was the proving ground for technologies and development approaches that would define the coming muscle car era. The Rochester fuel injection system pioneered electronic engine management concepts decades before computers became standard under the hood. The high RPM valve train components established durability standards that influenced all subsequent high-performance engines. Even the marketing approach, creating special performance packages with minimal badging but maximum effect, became a template for later offerings. The engineering lessons learned during the Black Widow engine program influenced Chevrolet product development for decades. The 302 cubic inch small block that powered Camaro Z28s and Trans Am racing during the late 1960s drew directly from Black Widow experience, using similar high RPM valve train geometry and breathing techniques. The LS7 427 cubic inch engine that dominated NASCAR in the late 1960s incorporated combustion chamber designs first explored during fuel injection development. Even modern LS and LT series engines, the descendants of the original small block, utilize port fuel injection principles validated by the Black Widow program. Beyond specific components, the Black Widow engine established a development methodology that Chevrolet would employ repeatedly, identifying promising technology, develop it through racing, refine it for production, and leverage the racing success for marketing advantage. This approach would later create iconic packages like the Capo Camaro, LS6 Chevelle, and L88 Corvette, all spiritual descendants of the Black Widow's Skunk Works development process. The AMA ban itself proved unsustainable in exactly the way Zora Arcos-Duntov predicted. By 1962, Ford had officially broken ranks, returning to NASCAR with factory support. Chevrolet and other manufacturers soon followed. unable to resist the marketing potential of racing victories. But the landscape had changed fundamentally during those intervening years. NASCAR had instituted more restrictive rules specifically designed to prevent any single manufacturer from achieving the kind of dominance the Black Widow had established. The balanced competition that resulted was arguably healthier for the sport, but it meant no single development would ever again have the revolutionary impact of Chevrolet's fuel-injected 283. For collectors, authentic Black Widow components have become holy grail items. The distinctive Batwing air cleaner assembly that topped the fuel injection unit now commands prices exceeding $10,000 when a verified original can be found. Complete Rochester fuel injection systems in current 1957 configuration can sell for more than $25,000. Full authentication of a real Black Widow car is nearly impossible given the limited documentation, but that hasn't stopped the market from assigning six-figure values to examples with compelling evidence of originality. This market reality highlights a central irony. The very band that sought to diminish the Black Widow's importance ultimately enhanced its collector value. Had production continued normally, these components would have been relatively common, their mystique diminished by familiarity. Instead, their abbreviated production in association with corporate forbiddenness created precisely the exclusivity that drives collector passion. Perhaps the most telling aspect of the legendary Black Widow engine is how it grew stronger after its official demise. In the decades following 1957, what had been a relatively brief factory racing program transformed into automotive mythology. Stories of secret warehouses containing unused Black Widow engine parts, of engineers who had hidden away technical drawings, of dealerships that continued building Black Widow spec engines well into the 1960s. These narratives took on lives of their own. Some contained kernels of truth, while others were pure fabrication. But together, they elevated the Black Widow from successful racing engine to forbidden fruit. This transformation from mechanical achievement to cultural touchstone reveals something profound about America's relationship with speed and power. When the Black Widow was banned, it wasn't merely removed from competition, it was martyred, creating exactly the mystique that Dervis executives had hoped to avoid. Young car enthusiasts who might never have noticed the fuel-injected 283 suddenly coveted it precisely because it had been deemed too powerful for public consumption. The parallels to prohibition are striking. Just as the ban on alcohol elevated mundane beverages to contraband treasure, the racing ban transformed the Black Widow engine from an impressive engineering exercise to an iconic outlaw. NASCAR's evolution in the years following the Black Widow's engine's demise reflects the double-edged nature of its impact. Rules were tightened to prevent similar technological advantages, pushing toward greater parity, but potentially slowing innovation. In attempting to cage the Black Widow, NASCAR fundamentally changed its own DNA. Bill France Sr., reflecting on this period years later, acknowledged the complexity of the situation. "We were building a professional sport, not running a laboratory," he told Stock Car Racing magazine in 1972. What Chevrolet accomplished was impressive as hell from an engineering standpoint, but it wasn't sustainable for competition. Fans want to see races, not exhibitions. The aftermath of the ban also revealed the limitations of corporate control over racing technology. Despite GM's official withdrawal and NASCAR's rule changes, the principles pioneered in the Black Widow engine program continued to spread throughout motorsport. By attempting to stuff the genie back in the bottle, the AMA ban merely ensured that innovation would continue through less centralized, more diverse channels. The engineers who created the Black Widow engine weren't merely developing a racing engine. They were establishing a performance philosophy that would guide American manufacturers for decades. For many of the engineers involved, the Black Widow represented the purest expression of their craft. Performance unconstrained by production compromises, cost considerations, or marketing departments. When the program was terminated, Many felt their most significant professional achievement had been prematurely abandoned and subsequently erased from corporate history. Some channeled this frustration into underground continuation of performance development. Others left General Motors entirely, taking their expertise to competitors or the aftermarket industry. A few bided their time until the racing ban inevitably collapsed, then resumed their performance work with renewed determination. Zora Arkoff Duntov's subsequent focus on the Corvette program can be partly understood as a response to the Black Widow shutdown. The Corvette, positioned as a specialized sports car rather than a mass-market vehicle, offered greater freedom for performance development, even under the AMA ban. By concentrating his efforts there, Duntov could continue pursuing his performance vision within the constraints of corporate policy. Ed Cole's later career path also reflects lessons learned during the Black Widow era. As he rose through GM's corporate ranks, eventually becoming the company's president, Cole maintained a delicate balance between encouraging innovation and managing corporate risk. His support for subsequent performance programs was typically more circumspect, with clear boundaries and exit strategies, direct responses to the Black Widow engine experience. The Black Widow engine's ban true impact. Smokey Yunick, never one to mince words, put it succinctly years later. The suits got scared when they saw what they had created. The fuel-injected 283 wasn't just winning races, it was embarrassing the competition so bad they couldn't stand it. The ban came down not because the engine was dangerous to drivers, it was dangerous to the whole damn industry. That assessment contains more truth than GM's executives would ever publicly acknowledge. The Black Widow engine wasn't banned because it failed to meet regulations or because it posed unique safety concerns. It was banned because it succeeded too completely, threatening the delicate competitive balance that NASCAR depended on and challenging the gentleman's agreement among manufacturers to keep the horsepower war within manageable boundaries. The AMA ban represented a collective acknowledgement that unfettered competition could potentially damage all participants. If the performance war continued accelerating at the Black Widow's pace, public and regulatory backlash might force much more restrictive interventions. In this light, the ban can be understood as a self-preserving response by an industry that recognized it was approaching dangerous territory. By voluntarily stepping back from the performance precipice, manufacturers hoped to maintain control over how and when they engaged with racing, preserving the option for future participation under more sustainable conditions. When factory racing resumed officially in the 1960s, it did so within parameters shaped directly by the Black Widow engine experience. The legacy of the Black Widow extends far beyond its brief competitive life. When Chevrolet reintroduced fuel injection decades later, engineers studied the Rochester system as a historical reference point. When NASCAR finally adopted fuel injection in 2012, 50 years after the Black Widow showcased its advantages, the ghost of that groundbreaking engine haunted the transition process. And when modern collectors restore 57 Chevys to Black Widow specifications, they're not merely preserving automotive history. They're celebrating engineering rebellion against corporate timidity. Today's high-performance cars with their electronically managed fuel delivery, computer-optimized combustion, and marketing built around track capability all carry DNA that traces back to the Black Widow banned engine. The Black Widow may have been officially erased from Chevrolet's corporate history in June 1957, but its influence continues to reverberate through American performance culture. Perhaps most importantly, the Black Widow saga reminds us that racing history isn't merely a chronology of winners and specifications. It's a human story of ambition, politics, innovation, and occasional betrayal. Behind every technical breakthrough are engineers who dedicated countless hours to solving seemingly insurmountable problems. Behind every corporate decision are executives navigating complex pressures from marketers, regulators, dealers, and competitors. The shocking truth behind Chevrolet's banned Black Widow engine isn't just that it was prohibited for being too effective. It was that the ban itself created the very legend executives had hoped to suppress. In attempting to put this mechanical predator back in its cage, the industry inadvertently ensured its immortality. The Black Widow may have disappeared from NASCAR tracks, but it found a permanent home in the imagination of every performance enthusiast who believes that sometimes the most important rules are the ones worth breaking. For those lucky enough to hear a fuel-injected 283 at full throttle, its distinctive intake roar unlike any carbureted engine, the sound connects past and present in a visceral way. The Black Widow engine represents both a beginning and an ending, the start of systematic performance development by American manufacturers and the conclusion of truly stock car racing. Its brief dominance and abrupt disappearance mark a pivotal moment when motorsports transition from production-based competition to the more managed spectacle we know today. What ultimately makes the Black Widow story so compelling isn't just what the engine accomplished on the track, but what it revealed about the organizations and individuals involved. Chevrolet demonstrated both breakthrough innovation capacity and corporate timidity. NASCAR showed both appreciation for technical advancement and fear of competitive imbalance. Engineers proved both their mechanical ingenious and their willingness to circumvent official restrictions when their creative drive demanded it. These contradictions make the Black Widow more than just an engineering footnote. They elevate it to a case study in how automotive progress actually occurs, not through smooth corporate-approved processes, but through the messy interaction of technical ambition, competitive pressure, regulatory constraint, and human determination. The Black Widow engine was banned not for any single reason, but because it exposed all the tension simultaneously, forcing an industry to confront questions about racing's purpose and appropriate limitations.